Hey, good morning everyone. Ryan here and welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a wonderful morning, day, or whenever it is that you're watching this video. As you can see, it is snowing. It is snowing here on our southern hemisphere node terraforming island chillin', and I love it so much. It started snowing yesterday, but it didn't start snowing until about 6 a.m. Now we finally have the amazing 5 a.m. snow music, and I love it so much. But anyways, yes, we are back on chillin'. We're back on our southern hemisphere island. And I wouldn't say that like my inspiration or motivation to design this island is like greatly been, I don't know, changed over the last couple of weeks. But as I make small changes every now and again, I will say that my inspiration and motivation for working on this island has been a lot greater. So today, one thing that I kind of want to figure out is where the heck do I want to put this museum? Oh, CJ's here this morning. The museum itself, I feel, is kind of taking up a pretty big spot here on the island, and it almost feels kind of unnecessary. A lot of the things that I've kind of designed so far have been pretty practical in their use, I guess except for the little central park area there. But one thing that I thought about was possibly even moving the museum down here to this level, and then using this upper level for housing. So one thing I know that I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to go ahead and grab the kit for the museum because I got to figure that out. Got to figure out where this thing is going to go. And I got to say, really quick, I hate the size of the museum. Whoever decided that the museum should be 7 by 5, for those that don't know, the museum is 7 tiles wide by 5 tiles long. Whoever decided that is an absolute monster because you get this really awkward thing where if you want to place things like ramps to go up to your museum, you cannot place it dead in the center. It always has to be placed either 2 stairs or 2 ramps on either side of the museum, or you just kind of like compromise and you just have one ramp that goes into it, but it's not centered. But if you're anything like me, when you're designing your island, one thing you hate is when things are off center or when things aren't symmetrical. And so the fact that you can only have one ramp that leads into it and it's like not at the center of the stairs is really, really awkward. So yeah, just gonna go ahead and throw that thought out there. I've always hated the size of the museum. Just make it 6 by 5 and I think we'll all be happier. Regardless, I have 3 different locations for this museum that I'm thinking about putting it in, and we're going to test well, we're technically going to test all 3. You could technically say 4, considering the fact that there's certainly nothing entirely wrong with the location of the museum now. But like I said, it kind of takes up too much space. And while we're going through the conversation with Blathers here, I just want to say really quick, thank you all so much for all the love and support on the most recent videos, especially the intros that I've been doing for these videos. I'm trying something a little bit different, and it's given me tons of different like inspiration and stuff for future videos as well that I have planned, not only for this island but for the Northern Hemisphere island as well. So thank you all so much. If you guys enjoy those intros and you guys really like this style of video still, which it looks like you all still do, by all means, I know that this is kind of a call out early in the video, but be sure to drop a like on this video. Lets me know that you guys really enjoy what we got going on here. We've already kind of discussed location number 1, and that's what I'm going to try to figure out right now. And I'll kind of talk about my thought process for why a location may or may not work before we do so. So, admittedly, this was also kind of a spot for the museum as well. The awkward thing, though, is kind of in the neighborhood section. And even though there's no spot for a house here, which is kind of very similar to the style of like neighborhood that I've been going for, it just wouldn't work there no matter what. So that was kind of that location, and that was a sign that I need to drink some water. It's still very early here, of course. All right, so spot number 1. Now, normally when I do this, I usually take out the island designer tool and I start laying out some pathing. That way I can kind of get a good idea of the size of a particular building. In this instance, though, I figured this might be a little bit easier. Let me just imagine it right here. I think if I were to put it here, it'd be a little bit more to the left. Okay. So the immediate thing with this one is that it leaves very little room for decoration. There's not a lot of space on the left or right for things like maybe even continuous fencing. I guess if I were to put the museum to the left-hand side, I could probably add a little bit more fencing to the right-hand side and then just kind of make the designing on both sides of the museum symmetrical, i.e. things like bushes and stuff like that. So this is certainly a recommendation, or rather a thought for spot number 1, and I'm just gonna try it over here on the left-hand side as well. So as you can see, it's a little bit more even. I can place fencing up on the right-hand side. Now you do end up with this awkward thing where when it's not placed up against the back of the island, unfortunately you have just this gigantic unused kind of like real estate. Certainly not a problem, but it does leave a lot to the imagination. So maybe, if anything, I can try putting it as far back as possible. Okay, so it fits dead in that spot, which is really, really great. And then I have enough design space in the front of the museum that I could just lay a pathway that goes up into it. Even though it's a bit awkward because it's kind of like way off to the side, for being completely honest, I think depending on how long you've played this game so far, if you're anything like me, you probably haven't gone into the museum as often as you would like. So that was high consideration number 1. Now this is probably on the lower end of consideration, but there is this nice little cutout right here that I didn't count. I'm just gonna try and count my steps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that leaves 2 spaces, or 1 space on either side. So I could place it dead center here. Did you guys ever do that? Did you guys ever, like, when you went to measure something and you didn't have like a measuring tool, you would just like put your like the heel against like the starting of where you're trying to measure? Like, let's say you're trying to measure from one end of the room to the next, and you just like step in 1 foot in front of the other, and you just put your heel in front of the other one, like right, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, that probably sounds really crazy. I feel like definitely people have done it before, but I sound like a crazy person when I describe it that way. If you know, you know. So this is actually not a bad spot for the museum either. I was kind of concerned that it was going to take up too much room, or rather not fit, but that actually fits quite well. If I'm using the flowers as a reference point, I'm going to go ahead and just try this one more time here. I don't think I saw it really. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So unfortunately, to center it, or at least center as much as you can, it's probably going to be a little bit closer to the left-hand side, but it looks like my counting was a little bit off. The stepping measuring method didn't work out for me. It looks like it would be uneven. It would either be one tile long or 2 tiles long on either side. I think if I was going to do it, it would probably be longer on this side. That way the entryway is a little bit easier to manage. So what this does is it gets the museum kind of up and out of the way. The reason that you'd want to do that, or the reason I would want to do that primarily, is because of the fact that with the museum being out of the way, it doesn't take up a big portion of the potential design space. Now, the good thing about a small space like this, however, is that it doesn't take much designing in order to complete it. Technically, I could remove this pathing completely and just put a ton of trees out, and maybe even make this another campsite area, which would be very easy to, like I said before, it would be very easy to design. But it means that there's very little room for you to design the museum area. And I guess it more or less depends on how much of this area that you want to design. In the beginning, there was a thought for putting like a stargazing section here, and then like a dig site here, but the more that I think about that, I feel like it does kind of give a lot of emphasis on the museum, which is certainly not a bad thing. I think the museum is an integral part of this game, and also just being a completionist and collecting things is going to be important anyway. But I do like the prospect of having an entryway that leads up into the museum, very similar to my Northern Hemisphere island, but also not really. Even that island, the entryway is not so great. Well, by the end of this video, I'm already going to have made a decision, but let me know in the comment section down below which location you like the best. The alternative location, the 4th location, right? At this point, I've kind of lost count. This is probably number 5 now. The other location that I thought about doing was right here where the fountain used to be. However, we're in a precarious spot in that, as you can see here, again, it's not even. I'm just going to imagine it really quick to see what it would look like in this area. Now, the good news about this particular section is you can kind of see that what this would mean is that the entirety of this little area is the museum entrance, which could actually work to its benefit. This is certainly not the worst thing to fix. The only thing I would have to do in some capacity is just make it even. To do that, I would just bring this path out one space over, and then I could design one tile columns on the left and right of the museum, and that could be that. I would certainly want to push this back into the wall. Now, this area wouldn't be accessible whatsoever, but maybe that's okay. And maybe we don't even have a pathway that goes all the way around the museum as well, since you can't even really see back there once the museum was placed out. Well, I think of all the locations that I've thought about so far, I think the one that I really want to try, more or less, is this location on the left where my house was. Coming up here, I can already imagine there's a pathway leading up into the museum right here. I can kind of decorate with some benches and maybe even some fossils kind of around it as well. And it doesn't take up too much of a space. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, I just feel like... I don't know, it just feels a bit strange to have the museum that out of the way. Like I said before, I know that that's kind of a weird thing because of the fact that, like I said, we all don't really use the museum as much as we thought we would. And then as you can see, I kind of even thought about putting it here, but it was so uneven that I just decided to completely go against this. And if I put it right here, we run into this issue again, however, where, you know, the museum itself is taking up a really big spot. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit to this right here, just like this, just for now. And I'm going to start maybe even laying down the foundation of a pathway and stuff. That way I can kind of get a better idea of whether or not this is the finalized location of where I want this museum to be. Okay, I need to go a little bit further back. There is a thought to maybe even pushing it a little bit further to the right, but I think what I'm going to do there instead is I'm just going to put up some fencing. That way you cannot go back there. There we go. Alright, so now what we're going to do is I'm just going to place some pathways down here so that I can start kind of figuring out how I want the path to go. Now, you don't actually need it to go straight on. The only thing you really could do is you could have it just start like doing a little winding thing. Obviously, it's not dead center here, and that's totally fine. But let's imagine, for example, so I just need to gauge where the door is going to be. All right, door is going to be right here. So this is kind of the awkwardness of it again. The 7x5 nature of the museum is really difficult to design around sometimes, I feel like. Alright, so in essence, I would make it about 3 tiles wide. I'm just going to go up here to the regular museum and double check and make sure that that's exactly what's going on here. 1, 2, 3. That is certainly what's happening. Alright, cool. So we have the right idea for the width of the pathway. We really need at this point to just kind of figure out how we want to design it, if we want to design it in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, I do. So what I could do... This kind of makes the designing of this particular pathway a little bit awkward, since I generally like most pathways to be about 2 tiles wide as a walking space. This is an example all along the island is kind of a good idea of how I want the paths to be whenever you walk through it. But there is some kind of design where you can like split this down the middle and you can start adding things. So for example, if I wanted to add a clock tower here in front of the museum, that way you know like what time it is, or if I wanted to add some benches and stuff as well. Another alternative that I could do is I could maybe even bring the pathway out a little bit further. That way, what I would do is I would round it out. And I think what this would do is not only would it create that nice, long, wide pathway that I prefer whenever a player needs to be able to, or is like guiding the player along. Oops. But it does fill out a little bit more of the area. And I think overall it just may end up looking nicer. Now, nothing that you see here is going to be set in stone. I think once I have the museum set in place, it'll be a little bit easier for me to kind of see what I'm working with. Okay. So there's not a lot of room there. If I'm just going to mimic what I have down there up here really quick. Okay, so that actually doesn't take up much more room. It actually doesn't look too bad on the map either. If you were to look at it from a top-down view, it actually has quite a nice aesthetic. I think I'm going to keep this design right now, and then I think we'll just see what the museum looks like at a later time, and we'll start planning around it. I can already envision either some fossils out front, or maybe just even some more trees to fill out the location, make it look like kind of the museum is kind of tucked away in the middle of the woods somewhere. It's not going to be the biggest forest or what have you, but yeah, that's certainly an idea. Otherwise, I know this video we didn't really accomplish much. I pretty much just kind of talked about my thought process for moving the museum and how much I despise the size of this thing. But you know, I've really been enjoying these kind of more morning videos once again, and I didn't want to just do this off stream. I wanted to kind of, or off stream, off video. And for those that are really interested in kind of my design thoughts for doing something like this, I saw a ton of comments on the most recent video about folks who are getting inspiration from this series and from this island, because some people are feeling a little bit ashamed of not terraforming because they either feel like they're not good at it or what have you. And again, the whole purpose of this was to show you don't have to do that. So if me showing little design aspects every now and again is what helps people stay motivated for this kind of stuff, then by all means, I'll continue to do them. But for now, I think that'll do it. We'll see kind of how the museum looks at a later time. Really quick, once again, I just want to say thank you all so much for all the love and support on the recent videos. I've been really enjoying this style of video. I certainly plan on making more of it. And as always, if you want to see more videos like that in the future, and more videos like this in the future, drop a like, leave a comment down below. They both help let me know that this is something that you really enjoy and really want. And I certainly will enjoy and will help you guys out with that. So that'll do it for me. As I mentioned in a previous video, I've been going out on walks lately, trying to get into better shape. So I'm going to be doing that. Thank you all so much for watching and hanging out with me this morning or afternoon, wherever it is that you're enjoying this video. If you guys enjoyed, again, be sure to like it. If you're new to the channel and want to see more videos from me in the future, be sure to subscribe, turn notifications on, especially if you want to see the design process of this island as we move along here. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. I'm out of here. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out there. And until next time, have a great day, everybody. Bye now.